I'm here today in solidarity with the Palestinian people, as I have been for many decades. Today we've got probably 300,000 people here, and there are massive demonstrations all around the world. And this week has been a seminal week for Palestine.
Look how many people are here. Those people are representing us. Those are the real people that they know what they want. That's what we want, freedom for Palestine. And it's not just Palestine, it's a lot of countries in the Middle East. But Palestine has been like that for 75 years, and people are just scared to talk about it. We're not scared. I show my face. I want to go against it. I don't care if I lose jobs. I don't care. I want people to be free. That's the minimum that we can have in the life. We want freedom.
I think they're all going to be a bit shocked how much support there is for this. It seems to be more than they reckon for.
The turnout's been amazing. The amount of people in here support of all religions, ethnicities is absolutely phenomenal.
We're here because not only is it the US, not only is it the Israeli government, but the UK is being complicit in genocide by going over to Israel with Rishi Sunak shaking the hands of the murderous and callous Benjamin Netanyahu, saying we want Israel to win. That's basically the same as saying we want you to complete a genocide, and we won't stand for it, not anymore.
Keir Starmer's stance is absolutely shameful. Keir Starmer is someone who should be standing by the people of Palestine. Keir Starmer had a history of once, standing there, and suddenly all this twist to please the people who are in support of Israel is a shameful stance, and therefore he's losing many of his supporters. Many of the Muslim votes has been lost. Many of the Muslims are contacting us and saying, who should we vote for now? We lost our confidence in the government, Conservatives, and now Labour. Even you heard Absana today speaking on stage how it's ridiculous, the stance of Starmer, that is just alienated many people who were supporting him. I think it's a situation that I don't know if he could come back from. He tried after the massive lobbying and pressure that we have placed on him, but I think it was a failed try, and even not a full try to say that I support the people of Palestine and I support their right to food, water and electricity. He did not say it's right, and I don't think he is ever going to say it right, and even if he does it, it's too late.
Interesting that the Global South take a much different view to most of Europe on this. Most countries in the Global South have full recognition of the state of Palestine, exchange of ambassadors and so on. It's only in Europe and North America that this has not happened. And I do think that the pressure from the Global South is important and significant, that President Lula of Brazil was the one who crafted the sadly unsuccessful UN Security Council motion. More and more governments in Latin America and Africa are totally seized of the need to support the Palestinian people.
We're hopeful on humanity. That's what we're hopeful for. The governments won't listen. They never have, because they have their own agendas and they have their own people in power. How can you say, and how can people like Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak say that Israel has a right to defend itself when Palestine should have the right to defend itself, because they're the ones that have been getting attacked for decades, for longer than I've been on this earth, and a lot of people that are going to be listening to this YouTube interview for longer than they've been on this earth. The Palestinians have been getting persecuted, so they're defending themselves. You can't, it's like going into someone else's house, locking them in the basement, killing their family, then one day them freeing themselves and defending themselves by attacking you and say, no, actually you're the terrorist, not us. And we are hopeful that humanity will prevail, but do we have confidence in these governments? No, we don't, because it's all lip service to Israel.
I'm here today to support the Palestinians who have been evacuated from their houses, been bombed and probably injured. I think it's very unfair that's what's happening, that Israelis are doing to the Palestinians. And there are children like me suffering, wondering when they will eat, what's going to happen next, and losing a lot of members and lots of people.
I would definitely be concerned if Keir Starmer became the next Prime Minister, or was even in the running anymore these days. With all the stuff he said and done, it's just, there's time for a change, and we need better characters than this. We can't just keep putting the same people in power.
We've come to Downing Street because we want to send a message to Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak went to Israel this week and he said that he knows Israel is doing everything to protect civilian lives. That is a lie. They are doing nothing to protect civilian lives. They are bombing people every day. He also said Israel has the right to defend itself. But Israel isn't defending itself, it's attacking the Palestinians as it has done for 75 years. So we're here today to say we are against what our government is doing. The big majority of people in this country want a ceasefire now. But we're also saying to Keir Starmer, we want a change of government. We don't want a next government that will do the same as this government's doing.
We often ask ourselves when we look back at the atrocities of the past, the darkest points of history, we ask ourselves, what would I have done? We tell ourselves, I wouldn't have stood by, I would have spoken up, I would have acted. Well, now's the time, because what we are seeing in Gaza is an atrocity. What we are seeing is one of the darkest periods of our history. And now we have to speak out, and now we have to act. Because if you don't stand with the people facing genocide, then you are standing on the wrong side of history.
Look what Israel did only a couple of days ago, bombarding the Baptist Ahli Hospital right in front of our eyes, killing hundreds of doctors, nurses, patients, cancer patients, killing hundreds of civilians taking refuge in a hospital. And Israel claim, my friends, Israel claim, and its allies claim that they did not do it. They did not do it. I'll tell you, they did it. They did it.
And I say to those companies that make the weapons, that make the profits from those weapons, you have blood on your hands. Those companies, those factories here in Britain, they market those weapons as battle tested. Who are those weapons tested on? They are tested on the Palestinian people. It's time for the workers in those factories here in Britain, for the trade unions who organise in those factories to lay down their tools, to refuse to make the weapons that kill our brothers and sisters in Palestine.
Greetings from Ireland. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. Our peace settlement in Ireland has created a new future for later generations. But friends, in Palestine, there is no peace process. The lived reality for successive generations has been one of colonisation, occupation, apartheid and dispossession. And today an Israeli bombardment and humanitarian catastrophe is taking place in Gaza, the likes of which we have never seen. One Palestinian child has been killed every 15 minutes since the 7th of October. Nearly 4,000 Palestinians have been killed, and 70% of them have been women and children. Gaza faces human, social and environmental annihilation. And at the same time, friends, the West Bank is under military lockdown. Over 80 Palestinians have been killed, thousands have been injured, and hundreds have been arrested in recent days. War crimes are being executed with impunity against children, women, hospitals, schools and churches, behind the pretext that Israel has a right to defend itself. Why is that so? Why is that so? Because those actions, friends, have become Israeli state policy. Friends, we mourned the terrible loss of Israeli lives on the 7th of October in events that have been rightly condemned. But make no mistake about this, Israeli aggression against Palestine long predates that awful day. This current onslaught, bombardment and premeditated collective punishment of Palestinians is the inevitable culmination of a government mindset which views Palestinian people as animals, which dehumanizes and demonizes them as a non-people, which asserts that they must either leave their remaining homes or accept total domination or be killed.
The entire globe is seeing in real time the crimes against humanity that are being committed. And so we say together, not in our name. The UK government need to hear us loud and clear, not in our name. As we protest here, and similar protests take place around the world, we demand an immediate ceasefire, and we demand an end to the total siege of Gaza, and for the adequate amount of humanitarian aid to be distributed. Nothing can justify these crimes being committed against humanity. Nothing can justify the complete disregard for Palestinian life and their dignity. It's up to us. It's up to us to demand an end to the violence and demand lasting peace for all, based on justice and human rights for everyone. And so we must also be clear that the ongoing dispossession, the ongoing oppression imposed on the Palestinian people by the State of Israel must end. The illegal occupation must end. The forced evictions must end. And in line with international law, the Geneva Accords and the votes of the UN General Assembly, the settlement program must end. And there must be unconditional and immediate recognition of the state of Palestine.
Let's not forget that this is a conflict and a crisis that has been going on for decades and decades, and it must end. We deplore the taking of innocent lives. We deplore violence against civilians no matter where they are. And we applaud the statements from the peace and civil liberties organisations on both sides, including B'Tselem and those brave organisations in Israel that have called for peace. We applaud the demonstrations in Berlin and in Glasgow and in Australia and in New York. We see you. Can you see us? We applaud the brave Jewish Americans that occupied Capitol Hill calling for an end to the blockade. We see you. Can you see us? And we say to the politicians who rushed one after the other to give their unequivocal support to the Israeli war machine as it commits crime after crime after crime. We heard you. Now hear us. Free Palestine. End the blockade. End the occupation. We demand peace. And we say it's the role of the trade union movement in this country. We must bring pressure to bear on the politicians. We must make our politicians use their influence to bring about peace, to end the violence, to end the occupation of Palestine, to end the blockade. Let the humanitarian corridors open. Let the aid in. And we say there's only one solution to this crisis, and that is the establishment of a Palestinian state with its capital in East Jerusalem.
The People's Prime Minister, please make some noise for Jeremy Corbyn!
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you to PSC and all the groups that have put together today's fantastic demonstration, which is, I think, one of the biggest I've ever seen in London in solidarity with the people of Palestine. And I've just been looking at pictures that have been sent to me from friends in Dublin, where there's a massive demonstration that's brought the centre of Dublin to a standstill, again in solidarity with the people of Palestine. Demonstrations have taken place all around the world. Even those people that occupied the Capitol in Washington to demand peace and justice for the people of Palestine. It's a global movement that we are part of, and no mainstream media is going to defy us and getting our message across. The whole world is going to be active until the people of Palestine are able to live in peace and in justice in a fully recognized state of Palestine. Last week we demanded a ceasefire. Last week we demanded solidarity for the people of Palestine. And what's happened this week? Mass bombing has taken place all over Gaza. 4,000 people have now been killed by Israeli bombardment of Gaza, and indeed there's been incidents on the West Bank too. The death toll is rising. The killing of children, the killing of babies, the people who are the artists, the writers, the taxi drivers, the teachers, the doctors, all those people that make a society, gone forever because of Israeli bombardment of Gaza. And so the demand for a ceasefire was put. And well done, President Lula of Brazil, for having the courage to go to the UN Security Council. Well done the other Latin American leaders that joined with him in demanding that the UN Security Council pass a resolution. No more than that, just calling for a ceasefire. They even compromised and called it a humanitarian pause. But apparently, this government and the Prime Minister down there couldn't even bring themselves to vote for a humanitarian pause. And the United States, to its eternal shame, then vetoed the motion that was carried by a majority. And then worse than that, President Biden went to Tel Aviv to say that everything the Israeli government is doing in Gaza has his support. And in recognition of that, he was putting US warships on the coast. Not to be outdone, Rishi Sunak went there as well and said much the same thing. Directly involving our government, directly involving this country in a breach of international law by supporting the bombing of innocent civilians in Gaza, and tens of thousands are now at risk because of their work. And so they've given the green light to it. And now today, after a whole week of negotiations, the UN has managed to get a temporary access for some aid vehicles to get into Gaza. 20 trucks have been allowed into Gaza this morning. There are more trucks than that supplying shops on the Holloway Road in my constituency every week than there are 20 trucks to try and feed 2 million people in Gaza. Denial of water, denial of electricity, bombing of civilian targets. Quite simply, it is a war crime, and it's got to be called out for what it is. But horrific as what's happened in the last week is, put it in the context of 70 years of lack of recognition, 70 years of growing occupations on the West Bank, and now 500,000 settlers on the West Bank, the people of Gaza facing the most desperate time of their lives, with no power, no medicines, no food, no water, and nowhere else to go. And so what can we do other than raise our voices and demand solidarity and say to people all over the Middle East, all over Africa, all over Latin America, your voice matters to make your government act to stop the murdering of people in Gaza by the Israeli forces. That is why we're here today. Like all of you, I've been watching this on television, Al Jazeera and others that have done their best to try and report what's going on. Then occasionally I flick over to other channels that claim there's some kind of equality of sacrifice going on here. Let's be clear, any killing of any civilian is wrong, whether in the Negev desert or in Gaza. But the response of this carpet attack all over Gaza and the denial of all the basic necessities of life is totally wrong, and it's going to be called out in future generations. And I conclude with this. Political leaders that are incapable of calling out a war crime, political leaders that deliberately shy away from the horrors of what is now happening in Gaza need to think on and think very, very carefully and very, very deeply. If you are in a position to influence a decision, if you're in a position to influence a decision that can save lives and allow Palestinian children to grow up in the way that we'd all want our own children to grow up, then why didn't you do it when you could? And we will be here again and again as long as it takes. It might be raining now, but it's raining bombs elsewhere. We might be discomforted here, but think on to the people in Gaza and what they're going through. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone else for demonstrating wherever they are around the world. We're going to be here again and again and again and again until there is peace, until there is justice for all of the people of the Middle East and justice for the Palestinian people. Thank you.